Right, viewers, thank you very much for staying with Facing the Nation. And of course, I did promise you earlier to be talking about SKYE as it relates to the amnesty beneficiaries. I've been calling them pardoned prisoners, but the correct term, viewers, of course, it's a learning experience and you're also learning at the same time. The correct term is amnesty beneficiaries. And of course, you know the amnesty beneficiaries were those persons who were pardoned by His Excellency President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Brigadier David Granger. Of course, you know, one set was pardoned in May, that was Independence 2015, May 2015, and another set were pardoned on the end of the year, that's in December of 2015. So we're going to get an update today on how they're doing and what are some of the things as far as can be put in the public domain in terms of their rehabilitation process and so on. But first off, we are going to talk about the organization itself, SKYE. SKYE is Skills and Knowledge for Youth Employment. I know sometimes we only pay attention to these acronyms when something happens or when they're in the news for a bit or so on, but generally, for general knowledge, you know, we don't necessarily know what is what and who's doing what. So to talk about SKYE, I have with us in studio the Chief of Party, Miss Magda Wills. Welcome and thank you so much for coming on Facing the Nation.
You're most welcome.
All right, first off, let's talk about SKYE. What really is the purpose of SKYE, and is it Guyana alone?
For now, it is Guyana alone. Okay, so what I'm going to tell you about is where it started and where we are.
Perfect.
Okay, so SKYE, Skills and Knowledge for Youth Employment Project, it's a USAID funded project, and the implementing organization is Education Development Center, which is an NGO out of Boston. And they work with in a number of countries, about 30 other countries around the world and more developing countries. In 2011, EDC did an assessment in Guyana to see where youth were at, because the focus was for this project and the funding from USAID was to reduce youth crime and violence. Now, for you to design a project, you have to know where the youth are. And from that assessment, what we found was that, one, youth oftentimes had little alternatives to sentencing. And too often they were sent to detention facilities when, if they could have been afforded more, they could have done more with their lives. Outside of that, it was found in speaking with the private sector that there are jobs available, but oftentimes they would say that the youth aren't work ready. Outside of that, we know that youth represent a large number living in poverty in Guyana. So with all of that, a project was designed. It's designed with a four-pronged approach. So there is the detention prevention, where we focus on working with the magistracy to ensure that youth are given alternatives to sentencing. To date, we've had over 100 youth alternatively sentenced to the project through the probation services. So we work with those youth to ensure that they are well settled in society and focus on a development plan.
So this happens without them having to spend any time at all in the prison system?
That is the intention.
Okay.
Detention prevention. And the other three components, the welcome home component, where we work with the New Opportunity Corps, we work with Ministry of Education now, Department of Culture, Youth and Sports, alongside probation, childcare and protection to some extent. And the focus is to work within that facility to ensure that as we work with them in and they exit, we work at reintegrating them into society. Only coming to this point here today, we have a consultant in country who's focusing on working on a reintegration plan with the Ministry of Education, Department of Culture, Youth and Sports for those youth at the NOC. So what SKYE has is a group of 4 persons stationed at the institution working with youth, so that when they exit, they are linked to persons outside to facilitate that reintegration process.
Yeah, because there's always a complaint that even though this is not prison, it's not hardcore, but there's always the complaint that it's so difficult to be rehabilitated into society and get into normal everyday things. There's always that complaint. So I'm assuming the person on the outside is expected to make the transition a little more comfortable.
Of course. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit more on that. Why? With that, what we have Okay, let me go with the other two components and then I'll tell you what
Great.
cements it so that you can get a full picture of it. So the third component is the get ready to work component, and that particular component is focused on training youth in work ready skills. That is a direct response to what employers have been saying, that youth just do not have the right attitudes to work. So our curriculum that has been designed through EDC, and we would have sought the attention of Ministry of Education, the TVET institutions, and other key stakeholders to ensure that we adapt it to the Ghana context, is a really interactive piece of curriculum. I call it the best work-ready curriculum. And then again, I'm biased, but it really is the best. It focuses on having the youth understand self, and then understand interpersonal communication, and then they're trained in financial fitness, understanding key labor laws in Ghana, so that when they're linked to employment, they have the right attitude and they have some of the key skills to be able to help them to navigate the job environment. The fourth component is the be your own boss component, where the project works with youth at risk. And we work with youth between the ages of 15 to 24, ideally. And if we're focusing on reducing youth crime and violence, we understand that the youth who sometimes are termed at risk for varying reasons may have dropped out of the school system simply because it wasn't what they were really interested in. We learned differently. And what we have found with working with the youth who've been enrolled into the SKYE project is that a lot of them have serious potential. They have lots of talent. They're really, they have a lot to offer. So we understand that not every youth wants to work for someone else. So they may want to own their own business. So we focus on training them in entrepreneurship skills, and then with funding from USAID, they are given the equipment needed for, to the max of 200,000 to start their own businesses.
Okay.
The thing with it is that there's a cement to all of the components, and that cement for the project is the coaching element. Because, you know, if you were to look at a number of projects around, whether in country, out of country, one of the things you would think that you can give to someone knowledge, you can give to them money, you can give to them the world. But if someone isn't there to work alongside them, to guide them, to mentor them, you know, to just show them that path,
And
it really doesn't work.
There's also always this, I guess it's human nature, there's always the issue of discrimination. You will have people who will say you once was this and now you're trying to do whatever, and they can serve a serious challenge to any person who wants to be rehabilitated into society. You know.
That is true. But
So-
it's not all of our youth who come through the justice system. But once you're coming, the understanding we have is once you're coming from a particular setting, there's the likelihood of, if things do not work in your favor, that there is that possibility that you can get involved in activities that are labeled criminal. So for us, we want to build the capacity, build the resilience of youth to not get involved. And for those who are involved, we want to build them so that they can walk a path that leads to their development and again, overall development.
In terms of the welcome home component, whereby you did say, I think that's the welcome home component. Of course, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Where you did say that there's someone on the outside waiting, in a sense, to help. Coaches, yes, coaches. What strategy, if you can make that public, is used to choose these coaches? Because you have to be so guarded and so careful today that you can really and truly trust these people who are there as coaches.
Well, I can tell you, we have the best coaches. I mean, I don't know that they'll be listening to this because they don't even know that
you're here. That's all right.
But they are really the best group of people that I have ever worked with. Okay, so how are the coaches chosen? The majority of the coaches come with social work degrees or diplomas, sociology degrees, or some without degrees, but they would have they would have exhibited, or they're those persons within communities who would have worked a lot with the very types of youth that we are working with. So, and the thing is, it's not everybody who comes with the degree or with the experience that we work with. So in our interviewing process, we ask them what makes them the person to work with the youth, because it takes a lot. There are coaches who will be in bed and you may get a call at 11 o'clock from a police station. You don't stop working as a SKYE coach.
Always
You
on call.
work all the time. So there's no weekend, even though they have their lives. But the thing is that what I've found with our coaches is that they have so, I don't know if it's healthy, but SKYE and their lives tend to become one.
Okay. Some psychologists may not recommend it, but
Yeah.
they're I think in my world we call them workaholics.
No, but
I
it's
think-
just a love for people. It's people with real heart. So you see, it's how you look at things. Because if you see something as a burden, then
Yes,
then
it
you will
becomes
become, it
really
will become
a
a burden.
burden.
But if it's something that you love doing, then for you to just get up quickly, sort out a youth, or listen because a youth's parent is pulling zinc sheets off the roof and she's scared and calls her coach in the middle of the night and they need the police intervention. It's nothing to do, because what kicks in is that, my God, my youth. And that is what.
And you have really and truly had these experiences or heard of this, those experiences.
Yes, these are actual experiences.
Scary,
Yeah.
indeed. Let's talk a bit about the amnesty beneficiaries now. Those are the persons who were pardoned by His Excellency. How, what is the process and the procedure in terms of having them rehabilitated and so on?
Okay, now with the amnesty beneficiaries, as I said, the project focuses on youth 15 to 24. Yet we've been working with amnesty beneficiaries who are older than the 24. But it's rewarding. Why is it rewarding? For the few that we would have not been able to access simply because in any system, sometimes persons may give a wrong phone number or a wrong address. So coaches will keep turning up, looking, and not be able to find. But for the majority of them who are on the project, a few would have gone through training. Others would have had jobs before, and what we would have been able to facilitate, keeping in mind that each and every one of them are linked to coaches. So what the coach facilitates is that interaction again with the employer to ensure that, hey, this young man is out, this young lady is out. All they're asking for is for your second chance to allow them to continue employment. We have amnesty beneficiaries who work in, we have youth who, so I'm going to slip between amnesty beneficiary and youth, meaning the same thing, because
I get you.
as much as we say amnesty beneficiary, technically they're SKYE youth, so they're no longer separate to our other youth. Right?
Understood, yes.
Yes, so they have coaches who work with them one-on-one. They have coaches who liaise with their employers. They have coaches who ensure that when they are going to training, that they remain at training. So the key to working with the youth / amnesty beneficiaries is the whole system of coaching. What we provide for them is someone to be there for them, because oftentimes I'm not negating the fact that persons sometimes have deviant tendencies. But oftentimes these tendencies are because of other things that we don't look at in terms of society and all the other factors. And having someone, that support system in a coach, in that one person who can guide them through. And let me share one thing with you. For the SKYE project, one of the things that has to be filled out for every SKYE youth is an individual livelihood plan. An individual livelihood plan is a plan for life. Oftentimes, generally people don't just plan, it's like, yeah, I want to get there, I want to do this, I want to do that,
And I don't have
but
it,
sometimes they don't sit down and say, okay, I want to get here, how am I going to get there? So I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do the other. What our coaches do with youth is to sit with them and work out their life plans. So you say you want to be a mechanic, okay, let's discuss it. How are you going to get there? These are the steps, but the coach doesn't tell them what it is that they have to do. They work with them, because the likelihood of them sticking to a plan that they have developed for themselves is greater than you pushing your plans on them. So the whole SKYE experience really is just being able to work with persons in what we call an assets-based approach. Our coaches focus on what you're bringing to the table. So it's not because you have come out of a prison system, or you've come out of a detention facility, or you live in a setting that is riddled with crime. It matters not. When you look at that person, you look at that youth, you see, their assets. And then you
and the promise.
work on the assets. So that is our focus, the assets-based approach in coaching. Yeah.
Do you have, again, this is not to be negative, this is just just to be real. Have you ever had to focus on or pay attention to a possible failure rate where you have, for want of a better term, backsliders, if you want to call them
You
that?
always have that. That is something that is a given. But the thing with it is that we often say that it's just for a time. Because
but you are willing to take them back, let's say,
Oh,
that they
yeah.
come back even after that.
we say once a SKYE youth, always a SKYE
Oh,
youth.
okay.
So you can't, for us to move on an assets-based approach and not take them back would be going against what we preach. So we cannot do that. We've had youth who would have been alternatively sentenced and then ended up back in the system. And when they're back in the system, who goes to visit the coaches?
Oh, so the coaches also would go to the system.
It's just part of what they do. Because the thing is, when you start working with a youth, they build relationships with the youth. So in building that relationship, it's like a mother to a child, a father to a child. Well, technically, the concept. And you don't just leave your child alone. I mean, you may be a bit annoyed, and you may think, you could have done better. But our focus is their assets. Our focus is helping them. The focus is development. So if that's the focus, if they mess up one time, 2 times, 3 times, and the 4th time they are ready to do it right, then you would have won. To leave them alone is actually your loss.
Your failure.
That's how I see it.
Are you satisfied with the progress being made with the recent, that's 2015 and
Generally
the August 2015 and the December. Have you been satisfied with their progress?
I have. The thing with this is that even if it was just one who did well, I would be
You're the optimist, aren't you?
No, but you have to be. You can't work with youth and not be optimistic. If you're pessimistic, trust me, all you'll be doing is ensuring that they fail. Let's take, for example, there's one particular youth, an amnesty beneficiary, for want of another word. He's a SKYE youth. This youth had a really messed up life, where he witnessed something really horrible in terms of his parent. And after that, he got older, and eventually ended up in the justice system. So he ended up in prison. But the thing with it is that his life just kept going downhill. In prison, he had his own challenges. Like, we know that they do. The thing with it is that he said, when he heard that there was this pardon happening, he said he could not even sleep. He felt that if he had shut his eye, it would have disappeared.
Yeah, you don't want to miss anything.
You don't want to miss anything, because in his mind, somebody's going to say the next day, hey, that was a joke. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to be released. And this child is out. Well, I say child because it's a bad habit of saying child. This youth is out, and he is he's stable on a job. One, he was able to go through 5 weeks of training, and then he decided after the 5 weeks of the work ready training that he wanted to be part of the Be Your Own Boss training. He is working currently on his business plan, and he also has a job. What he says to us is this: I'm not going to leave my job, but I'm going to work on that business plan, and I'm going to work with the business until I'm okay enough to say I don't need to work for someone else.
On that note, just to come off of the beneficiaries for a bit, have you ever had cases whereby you probably seek out past employers for some of them, and they say, look, I don't necessarily want him or her back in my system? Have you ever had to deal with that sort of thing?
Okay, we do an employer satisfaction survey. So when youth are linked to employment, 3 months on the job, we go to the employers and we speak to them to see whether they are going to remain on the job, or the employer says, no, I'm not going to keep this youth. And besides that, our coaches liaise with the supervisors regularly. I cannot say that they're persons. Okay, there was one case with a youth who was linked to GNIC where it was apprenticeship training, and the head did say that he did not want a particular youth back. There was some trouble with that one youth. The thing with it though is that even though, and those cases are very few, because the intervention is there to be able to reduce the possibility of that. Keeping in mind the type of youth, if we're talking at risk, don't for a second think that 5 weeks of training, 6 months of coaching, 1 year of coaching is going to get you a perfect human being. None of us are perfect. So youth who would have gone through life a certain way, you cannot expect that everything is going to be perfect. But what we say to employers is that, hey, they're workable. And guess what? They deserve a second chance. And sometimes they just need a third and a fourth chance. And so what we do is regular interventions through coaches. Also on the project, we have a workforce development and private sector specialist who's Mr. Raul Dundas. And what Raul does is to focus on ensuring that he interacts with as many private sector personnel as possible to ensure that they understand our youth and who we work with. We also have on board our juvenile justice and gender specialist, Mr. Dale Erskine. And you know Mr. Erskine, his years in the prison service. Now he understands youth getting involved in certain activities and being able to channel and work with them and guide coaches in such a way. It's and this is the result.
Which means that tells that there's also training for the coaches.
Yes, the coaches are all trained in the coaching SKYE coaching methodology, which is the assets-based approach. We also focus on training not only our coaches, but we have our past project director, Professor Eric Butler, who's going to be in sometime in February, and we're focusing on training the staff at the NOC as well as staff at the Kuru training facility in our coaching methodology. What we believe is that once persons are exposed to our methodology, that assets-based approach, they will see youth with a different eye. And that's all you're asking people to do, to look at youth differently. Yes, they could have they could have done this, they could have done that, they could have done the other. But just if you take another look from a different perspective, from an assets-based perspective, you work with them differently. Because when you look at them, assets, you tend to treat differently. If you see someone as a problem, right away, you're going to treat them as if they're a problem. So our focus is to share as far and wide as possible our methodology. Why? Because we believe that coaching, that assets-based methodology is what gets us the success that we are currently seeing in the project. And another attributing factor, though, it's a donor-funded project. And one of the things that we have been able to benefit from is having a donor agency allow us to tweak and twist and fix our methodology just to get the best.
That's good, because usually when you have donor agencies, some of them actually want to tell you how you should go ahead.
That doesn't happen with us.
So really,
once we make the suggestion, this isn't working this way, we need to spend on this to be able to get to this point. And with USAID, we have an agreements officer representative in country, Ms. Chloe Noble, and we've always been met favorably to be able to, the cause, the focus is our youth. And I think that is what gives everybody the energy to keep, pushing.
It does, and I like your energy. It's contagious. It really is contagious, and trust me, I needed to be contagious today. And I want to congratulate SKYE on the work that they've been doing for our youth, and of course, it all falls in line with the current policies of the current government, the current president. Of course, his focus is always youth and ensuring that the youth do the best that they can. Of course, earlier I was talking with a youth who's running for councillor in the local government election. So congratulations on what SKYE is doing for youth. I know you're a very busy woman. So I must let you get back to your busy schedule, and thank you so much for coming. I'm happy also to hear that the amnesty beneficiaries are progressing nicely, because people, want to know what will happen to them after, because there were some negative comments against it. Some for and some against, I think, like anything in society. So it really is good to hear that the amnesty beneficiaries are progressing nicely.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. Of course, viewers, if you're now tuning in, you've missed a lot coming from the chief of party of SKYE. SKYE is the Skills and Knowledge for Youth Employment. She did give you a rundown on what's happening with SKYE, and eventually we will have her back, or somebody else from SKYE, to talk about the continued progress of the institution and so on, and the now amnesty beneficiaries and other possible beneficiaries. Of course, as you know, His Excellency has promised that that will be an annual feature, of course, for as long as he is president, and we hope that's a very long time. I'll take a quick break, and when I come back, it will be time to wrap up today's program. Stay tuned. And of course, viewers, that is going to do it for today's program of Facing the Nation. I see the phone lines are going suddenly. I wonder if someone had questions for Ms. Wills instead of Akeem, who was here to talk about local government elections. I know some of you probably were not confident enough to call and pose your questions, but viewers, you have to remember, and this is what we keep asking you, to give young people a chance. Some people were saying that our young people are not stepping up to the plate, but now that they're stepping up to the plate, you have to give them a chance and show some sort of confidence in them, some amount of confidence. We cannot always look to our senior leaders to provide the answers for the questions that you have. You have to put the trust in our young people in order to give them that confidence too, and to boost them. So I will encourage you to do that. Next week, I hope to have another youth candidate on the program, another youth candidate involved in local government elections, and of course that is expected to be Mr. Sherrod Duncan. He is also an APN AFC youth candidate, so look forward to that next week. What you can do is prepare your questions, and you can I'll have Sherrod answer some of them. I still expect to deal with the extended long dry weather season that we're having next week also. So lots coming up on Facing the Nation. Of course, I'd like to urge you, as I always do, be good Guyanese citizens, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. I am Malika Ramsey. This has been Facing the Nation.